So, right, I have a little footnote that I made myself for this particular story because I did track down where Hearn got this story from. So the story Juro appears to have been like an original story he came up with loosely based on something he read, a travel article he read in a magazine back then called Bunge Kurabu. So he read it. He read a travel article and was like, "Oh, this gives me an idea," and wrote his own little ghost story. Um, this is the only story where he has an epigraph, which is that little tiny, nearly illegible poem right below the title. That poem might be, I haven't been able to get a hold of the publication where the poem was in, but I have read a couple Japanese articles that reference the poem as being in this publication. So I think it's a Masaoka Shiki poem. And Masaoka Shiki was a well-known poet at the time. Hearn and he lived in Tokyo at the same time. Hearn taught some of Shiki's students, and they taught him because a lot of his teaching was basically like he had an official English literature position, but then, his students would teach him Japanese and haiku and all of that stuff. And Hearn was really into haiku. 16 zakura. Uso no yona, 16 zakura, saki ni keri. In Wakegori, a district of the province of Iyo, there is a very ancient and famous cherry tree called 16 zakura, or the cherry tree of the 16th day, because it blooms every year upon the 16th day of the first month, by the old lunar calendar, and only upon that day. Thus the time of its flowering is the period of great cold. The natural habit of a cherry tree is to wait for the spring season before venturing to blossom. But the Junroku Zakura blossoms with a life that is not, or at least was not originally, its own. There is the ghost of a man in that tree. He was a samurai of Iyo, and the tree grew in his garden, and it used to flower at the usual time, that is to say, about the end of March or the beginning of April. He had played under that tree when he was a child, and his parents and grandparents and ancestors had hung to its blossoming branches, season after season, for more than 100 years, bright strips of colored paper inscribed with poems of praise. He himself became very old, outliving all his children, and there was nothing in the world left for him to love except that tree. And lo, in the summer of a certain year, the tree withered and died. Exceedingly the old man sorrowed for his tree. Then kind neighbors found for him a young and beautiful cherry tree, and planted it in his garden, hoping thus to comfort him. And he thanked them, and pretended to be glad. But really his heart was full of pain, for he had loved the old tree so well that nothing could have consoled him for the loss of it. At last there came to him a happy thought. He remembered a way by which the perishing tree might be saved. It was the 16th day of the first month. Alone he went into his garden, and bowed down before the withered tree, and spoke to it, saying, "Now deign, I beseech you, once more to bloom, because I am going to die in your stead." For it is believed that one can really give away one's life to another person, or to a creature, or even to a tree, by the favor of the gods. And thus to transfer one's life is expressed by the term migawari nitatsu, to act as a substitute. Then under that tree he spread a white cloth, and divers coverings, and sat down upon the coverings, and performed harikiri after the fashion of a samurai. And the ghost of him went into the tree, and made it blossom in that same hour. And every year it still blooms on the 16th day of the first month, in the season of snow. he's definitely tailored this for a Western audience by saying that the old man commits harakiri and that kind of thing, because that's not how it would work in a Japanese story.